Good morning and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan here in beautiful Loveland, Colorado, where it is a chilly 22 degrees this morning, and I am happy to be with all of you here in my studio. If you are brand new to Painting in Your PJs, thank you for being here. I am so excited that you're here, and I'm going to take me a minute to get all my text set up in the right place, so just bear with me for just a second. So I'm normally here on Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, and today I am here on a Friday because of some flight changing and travel stuff and all kinds of good stuff. So Painting in Your PJs is all about how to use art as a creative process for personal growth and self-discovery. And this year I'm focusing, for the moment, until I get bored, because that's how we creatives roll, on paper dolls, what I'm calling the Paper Doll Chronicles. If you love what I'm sharing, you can subscribe to our email list where we are sharing a whole bunch of different templates and doll faces and a lot of extra resources. We have a forum for connecting and sharing our dolls in the forum. Good morning, my friend Tori. I'm sure it's cold there as well. And last week we created an inner muse, a creativity muse, a beautiful representation of a paper doll that really represents, our inner creative self. And it was really fun after good afternoon from North Wales, Carolyn. Hello. It was really fun to come home and see my muse sitting on my table waiting for me after being away for close to a week. I'm always so happy to be back in my studio after having been away. And she is beautiful. I love her, and she's a little naked, and she wants some clothes. And she has decided that she wants some fun, playful fabric clothes. And I'm just back from 5 days in Austin where I had some wonderful creative time with one of my closest friends and my retreat collaborator, Leslie Typrin. And we made some beautiful fabric inspired dolls. But one of the things I noticed that we both do is that we talk to our dolls. We literally ask them what they need. We're both trained creative depth coaches, which is a lot about introspection and letting our art speak to us and communicate with us. And so it was no surprise to me when I came in this morning and my doll was talking to me, and she had a lot to say. And she was happy that I'm back. She'd been pretty lonely while I was gone, and she's really ready for some clothes. So I thought it would be fun to use fabric and beads and all kinds of things to, again, continue to work with this idea of the personification of the muse. We talked on last week, so if you have not made your muse doll, go back and watch the videos from last week where we made the doll. And if you're on my email list, the template, or actually there's a link to the template also in the description of the video. And when we were talking about connecting to this muse, there was a lot that came up. And to remember that so often we seek inspiration outside of us rather than seeking our own creative inspiration from within. And people often talk about, I feel creatively stuck or blocked. And a lot of times the perfectionist is a part of us that gets in the way. You should probably make an inner perfectionist paper doll. I need to start keeping a list. And let her go play somewhere else when you're creating, or you need a doll for your inner critic so that you can have a conversation with your critic. Your critic has an important role to play. It's there to keep you safe. And sometimes the critic is louder than the muse. So today, what I really want to continue to focus on in this series throughout February is this idea of the more deeply connected we are to our own inner well of creativity, the more we see, feel, and believe that it's bottomless, that it's endless, that it's infinite. And when we know how to connect, to articulate, to ask questions, to be in dialogue with that aspect of ourselves, that inner muse is simply an aspect of you. She has a lot to say, and our job is to learn to listen. So this is where we get out of our thinking heads, back into our creative imaginations, and really tap in to what's happening beneath the surface of our conscious thoughts about, I can't do this, I can't do that. And so we are going to play with our doll today. And I was going through my stash and I bought these at a creative reuse store because I thought the clothes were really cute. Remember Cabbage Patch Kids? I always thought the dolls were pretty creepy. In fact, a lot of dolls kind of creep me out. Maybe that's why I didn't play with a lot of dolls, but there's something about the paper dolls that I am so in love with. But I was inspired by all the little outfits. And when I asked my muse, she really loved this little ballerina outfit. And when I was in Austin with Leslie, we did a ton of shopping and Tulle was on sale, and I bought a ton of Tulle, which is in a box being shipped home to me sometime later today. So she's going to get a Tulle skirt added later, but I'm looking at the flowers and the details and little pom-poms, even look at her little ballet slippers. So this gave me some fun inspiration and ideas. Now, I don't know that where I'm going next will look anything like this, but it was a fun way to just play with some of these cute little ideas from these old patterns. Good morning, Yvonne. And so I simply went through my stash. I pulled out some of the fabrics I brought home. I found this is hand painted fabric on a piece of black muslin that felt like it might want to be like a cute apron, or somehow it wants to travel with her a little bit. But this was the fabric that when I pulled it out, she's like, oh, yes. And interestingly, it matches. So this fabric was something I think Leslie had in her stash and shared with me. So it was a fun weekend of swapping and sharing and hunting for treasures in a variety of different places. And this was one. And when I came home and looked, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at it's like it's a perfect match, as if I had painted this fabric to go with my muse. I pulled out some other fun, just colorful bits and pieces as well, looking for inspiration, some hand stamped and stitched pieces. This one felt way too dark. I think I grabbed that by mistake. I also have this really beautiful, almost like a story of its own, this piece that a friend gave me for Christmas. And so maybe part of that wants to be part of her dress. So today is about how can we mix it up. So we've done a lot with paper. If you took Leslie and I's class at In Bulk, I used a lot of fabric in a different way. Now, I am not someone who knows anything about sewing or making patterns, so I'm always open for suggestions, and I'm also very comfortable just figuring it out. But in order to make this feel like it's an outfit, most of my other dolls, the things are glued on or folded on, or they're added in some different ways. So this was my giant doll that I created, and I literally just glued the fabric to cardstock. And this was also super fun, a Jack Ravi inspired medal with a deer that I really love, and this fun skirt. So this one was super fun. You can see she's really huge. I love making these really giant dolls. Got her legs backward in here. And I wanted to do something different, something a little more special. I've also been having a hankering for doing some slow stitching. I love slow stitching. And so I'm thinking about how can I start to incorporate all of these things together into one piece. This piece feels really fun, so there might be a little bit of stitching. So some of these pieces feel really like all part of the same story here. I love this one with the leaves. Good morning, Blanca. So I'm starting to think about, how can I put all this together? Do I want this to be a stitch dress that I make an effort to stitch on my sewing machine? I have a sewing machine. I'm really good at a straight stitch, and I use it more for paper arts than for fabric. But I'm really loving this piece of fabric, and I'm wanting it to feel very drapey and to go on her like a dress. I think that's the thing, rather than a paper doll where, we're just making something for the cover and making little tabs or things feeling glued on. This one feels like she wants some actual clothes. So I simply took a piece of this just cheap paper, and I basically just traced a basic dress outline shape onto the fabric, and I'm going to cut two pieces of it and sew them together and see what happens. And it could be a disaster. It could be a lot of fun. If you don't like to sew, you could glue it together. You could glue the fabric to a piece of cardstock with the tabs so that you could put the dress on her that way. That would be another fun way to approach this. And I want a little bit of symmetry here, so I am going to just fold that in half and cut both sides out. My mom was a wonderful seamstress, and she did machine embroidery for a while, and she tried to teach me to sew, but it just didn't stick. I don't think I ever really had the patience for it as a kid. All right, so that's going to go up over her hair, and her arms were the part that I was thinking about, so we're going to want to have, a place for her arms to come through, and I'm going to make it work. And it might be that, it just gets tacked in a couple of different places. All right, Tori, you're my friend who sews. There may be other people on the call who sew. Thank you. Leslie had an amazing collection, plus we went to Joann's and got some more fun things. Okay, it feels like the problem is I think her arms need to move down on her body, and that would make a difference. I'm realizing that the paper doll body needs some better shoulders. It's kind of ridiculous, the stash of fabric that I brought home from Leslie's house and the stash of tulle. We definitely went a little bit crazy. We found a really fun creative reuse center, and had a lot of fun buying fabric and beads and all kinds of things for our doll making over the weekend. She looks very strange without her arms, doesn't she? So I'm almost feeling like she needs some shoulders. It is so fun to shop with a friend. Almost like she needs one more part of her arm here. This is going to be one of those episodes where I am figuring it out as I go. All right, I'm going to make it work. I'm not sure how I'm going to make it work, but I'm going to make it work. All right, let's give her arms back. But it sure made me happy to come home from my travels to her waiting for me. I think these need to just go down here a little bit lower on her body. And her head might have to come off while we do some assembly, which also might make things easier. That's kind of the fun of working with the Brad's is that things are movable. Okay, just putting her back together, and then we're going to work on this dress. I also ordered some felt, and I'm thinking in March we're going to do some felt paper dolls. Something a little fun and different, because I think the more variety and the more different things that we try, then the more things that we discover that we love as well. Okay, take her head off. It sounds so funny. Off with her head. Little Alice in Wonderland. And once you've figured out how to do this, it's really easy to make a lot of your own different dresses and styles. So I took a bunch of the just different figures and faces that I had and just have drawn different patterns and shapes for bodies. So I think the more that you just play, then the more creative your dolls are going to become and the more expressive they will be in terms of representing different parts of self. Okay, so let's put this back on here. I feel like her top is maybe a little bit too big. So if we've got her arms, we've got to have a place where the dress is going to go over her arms. And tuck somehow. Well, it's probably going to have to go right over. And I'd rather be wasting paper than wasting fabric. So I'm, figuring this out with the fabric. Somehow she wants her skirt to be super fun and flowy. All right, starting to look a little more dress-like here. Place for her arms. I think it's going to want to be a sleeveless dress, so it's very easy for those arms to move. And when I look at that little cabbage doll pattern, it had that little sleeveless dress, which totally makes sense. And if it doesn't work, it's only paper and fabric, and it's no big deal. But if I get this part figured out, then I can have tons of fun with figuring out what else it is that she wants and needs. Okay, those can even be, yep, I think that's gonna work. And I think what I'm going to do is the front will be all one piece and then the back will be two pieces. So I can stitch the sides and it will sort of close up around her. Okay, headless dolls. All right. So we're just gonna see what happens, but I am in love with this fabric and I'm probably gonna wish I had my fabric scissors over here. I might have to go get my better scissors because these old paper scissors. And I even, I love all the stringy bits. Like I'm not looking for this to be super fancy. I'm looking for it to just really help express that inner creative muse. And I think she's definitely going to want some ballet slippers. So as you're working on your own doll and you think about what would be the external expression of your creativity? Leslie and I had that conversation this weekend. So when you think about creating your own doll, or if you think about if you went around dressed like your own creative muse, how would you dress? For me, it would always be very gypsy-like with lots of long, flowy skirts, lots of fun, funky jewelry. And when I listen to my muse, she's like, yes to the bright colors and to the long, flowy, but she really wants the tulle, right? Good morning, Karen. She wants that fun skirt, so that's going to come a little bit later when that box of fabric shows up. All right, these scissors aren't great, but they're doing the trick. All right, let's see how we're doing. Let's put our head back on. Actually, we're not going to put our head back on yet. And I'm still just a little bit amazed by how the colors are so similar to the colors that I painted her with last week. Okay, so we need a little more room. Don't you hate it when a t-shirt is too tight right there under the arms? So she's like, okay, I need a little more room maybe to move my arms. The length feels pretty good. And that fabric is so fun. I think I would wear a dress made out of this fabric. But it's certainly exactly making her happy. She definitely is going to want some beads and some things hanging off of her. I also have another one of these fun little medals. So this is from Fodder School 4 and a lesson by the artist Jack Ravi, who's an amazing teacher, and I love watching him. And he did these wonderful medals with antique photos of people in them. And old photos aren't my thing, but animals are. So I stamped my own animals, and these are just made out of bottle caps. I also really love that those beads, so I don't know. Feels a little big for her, but she wants some decoration happening going on for sure. And I'm thinking I'm definitely going to want to stitch this up on my sewing machine. It's going to be a lot easier. So I'm going to work on some of the decorations and things, and then I will stitch it all together another time and show the results because my sewing machine's way on the other side of the studio. Let's see, I think I had this behind this way. And for those of you that are, here regularly in our community, remember that we do have a forum, a private forum off of Facebook where you can share your dolls. And thank you so much, Tori, for getting the party started with your dolls. All right, this is going to be so much fun. And so I'm doing this with fabric. You could 100% do this with paper, with tissue paper, with napkins, with old scrapbook paper, right? There's so many different things that you could use. Oh, that definitely wants to go on there. very fun. So many different things that you could use to make clothes. The most important part is to get that pattern down, to get that shape of the clothes down, and then to figure out where to go from there. And so today I'm going to make the front of the dress. I'm going to see what else she wants. I can tell you I have these fun little paper flowers. So I want to encourage you as you're working with your dolls to look around and use up the things that you have on hand. There is no need to go and buy a whole bunch of stuff, Manette said after she spent a whole weekend shopping, but instead to really think about what do I already have that I can use in my paper doll making. So she definitely wants some flowers in her hair. So today is about accessories, right? It feels like she's going to want a little box or a little basket full of her creative supplies. So this is the part where we really start to build her up and turn her into something beyond just the flat doll that we created last week, which was also magical. Like, I love seeing her and seeing all the writing. Because I was out of town, I haven't looked at this in a week, and so it was really fun to come back to the studio this morning and look at what I had created and what she had had to say and all the different ways that I express creativity, right? I never have creative blocks. I haven't in a really long time. I have the exact opposite problem of having, and that purple glue will dry. Oh, right. I pulled out all these fun things. I really loved this dragonfly. I've been really into dragonflies, so maybe she needs that dragonfly. Let's zoom in a little bit. So she's starting to come together. I don't even know where this came from, but I found it in my stash of goodies. And if you are a mixed media artist like me, you will find stuff like this all around. If you're not a mixed media artist and you do not have a studio full of stuff like I do, an overflowing studio of stuff, then I encourage you to go to thrift stores, like Goodwill stores. Look for a creative reuse center in your area. Watch when Michael's has great coupons. If you have been watching the news, Joann's Fabrics are closing 500 of their 800 stores, and they're going to start having liquidation sales in many of their stores. So things to keep an eye out for, and you don't need a lot. Like, this bag of flowers will last me a couple of years. So we often think we need a huge quantity of things, and we don't. These things came from a creative reuse store. Actually, I think this one was something I found at my dad's house when we were cleaning out my dad's house last fall. My dad was a master naturalist and a volunteer at a state park, and something he was doing, there were a whole bunch of these fun little pins in different colors and animals. And all of a sudden, she starts to have some personality, right? And so think about what are the things that express creativity to you. How can you continue to add to her to make her more and more expressive? And this almost feels like it might be a little apron that's going to get tied around there. I'm feeling like I want to come in and just add some stitching. I am going to cut a back, I think, and sew her together, but that doesn't feel as important or as fun right this second. And Ripping fabric is one of my favorite things. I love all the frayed edges that you get. So I want to have a little less black around this maybe. Too small the piece. And this feels like it needs a little another bit of color around it, but this hand painted fabric also matches this exactly. So it feels like it's kind of all coming together in some fun ways. And I also thought that this could get stitched down and maybe tied around. So fun things to think about. But what feels fun right now is to think about how can I add some texture to her dress here. I'm going to grab some. I have an old inherited box of all different kinds of embroidery floss. Some bought, but some came from my stepmom when I cleaned out her craft closet after she passed away. She definitely, like, pink is not my favorite color, but lately there has been a lot of pink wanting to show up in my artwork, and so I'm just trusting that. My mother wished I would have worn a lot of pink. Let's see, tiny little bit of purple something something there. And a very messy box. Pretty pink crystal heart in here left over from something. So it's amazing when you start going through all of your stuff what you might find, right? And don't be afraid to just, like for this stone, you could either glue it on with the glue stick and see if it holds, but I also hot glue, a little bit of hot glue on there would really help that stay attached as well. Lots of needles. Okay, that heart wants to be on there, but I think that's going to wait until I have the back on there because it feels very heavy. But my muse has a huge heart, right? So that feels lovely to have that little crystal heart become part of her. I think it's not that one. Maybe a little purple, a little bit of this pink. The thing I love about what people are calling slow stitching, or it's just the long stitch, right? It's just a running stitch. There aren't a lot of fancy stitches, and it is very soothing. A nice sharp one. And I'm going to use all 6 strands of the floss. I want it to be nice and chunky, so it's going to show. It's funny watching people knot the end of their thread. So many people have a different way to do it, but I still remember how my mom taught me when I was a girl. And I'm just going to come in and bring a little life to this fabric. And as I stitch, I can be in dialogue with my doll. Some of the questions I like to ask when I'm working with intuitive art and intuitive collage. Things like, what is the gift that you have for me? And I already have a little knot in there. I'm working with a long piece. What is the gift you have for me is a great question. Or what do you want me to know about you? You might ask her what her name is. I'm hearing that her name is Betty. Don't ask me why. And it's amazing when it's a little hard to see, and that's going to be, let's see, bear with me, let's do the silly focus thing. with my silly camera. There we go. That's better. And then back to video. Wrong way. So there you can see that a little bit better. It just adds a little texture. And yes, it is Valentine's Day, and I thought about doing something Valentine's related, but what is more loving to ourselves than to connect with our own inner muse? I have a girlfriend coming to play in the studio. Brad and I are going to go to the night on the town tonight for the local art walk. And I live in Loveland, Colorado. Okay, this fabric is kind of funny. And so they have a Valentine's Day festival is one of their big festivals. And it's going to be very, very cold out tonight. I don't think that ever stops anybody. But they have a sweetheart festival here. And the more we love on our muse, the more that she loves us back, right? The more that she loves us back. And slow stitching is one of those activities that makes my breathing slow down. It's very mindful. Feel my shoulders relax. My voice gets quiet. I can get into that wonderful flow state. And when we're in that flow state, we are aligned with our muse. When we're in the flow state, we forget that, there's a pesky inner critic. I'm not trying to be neat. I'm not counting stitches. I'm not trying to make them all exactly the same. I'm just in that nice repetitive in and out, in and out. So I'd love to hear from some of you when you think about dressing up your own muse. What does she want? What does she need? What is she looking for? Is there a color palette? Thank you, Karen. Is there a symbol? Is there a texture or a pattern? That calls to you? Like it would be really green foliage. Yeah, like there's a part of me that this muse did not go with this fabric, but this one really calls to maybe my inner nature muse, right? Tori, I can bet your muse would be pink. And Yvonne's muse would have amazing, fabulous fingernails, just like yours, and gorgeous long hair. Actually, you and Blanca both have beautiful long hair. right? And so just that little bit of texture, all of a sudden it starts to bring the fabric to life. And as I'm stitching, I'm hearing, oh, definitely need to add some yellow. And when we think about looking in our stash, look for those things that feel precious or that you've thought, oh, I don't want to use that. I have to save it. I might need it for something. Well, what could be more important than your own creativity? It's almost time for the 100-day project to start. Lace and velvet in violet and cream. Oh, that sounds like beautiful and Victorian and really, really magical. Where's my camera? Let's shift that focus back. That sounds amazing, Carolyn. All right, that feels like enough pink on there. See if she wants any pink anywhere else. Well, I have the pink on the fabric. And then it's going to be so cute with that little heart in the center. And one of the things I found was this fun little safety pin, which feels like it had some little beads and charms maybe hanging from it. So it's feel like she's going to have a lot going on that feels like her outer expression of creativity aligns and matches with her inner expression of creativity. And I'm wishing I had a brighter yellow. It must be in my other box, but this was the box that was closest this morning. Oh, well, isn't this fun? That's what we need. Some of these fun, a little bit more pastel-y colors. And it feels like the stitching is only going to be up here because I think this definitely, so maybe she's not going to get tulle. I think this is going to get stitched on, or maybe she will get some tulle wrapped around her as well, but it feels like this really wants to be part of the picture because nature is such an important part of my own creative journey. So totally pink fancy ball gown. I love that. Has a hat, steampunk style. These are so juicy. Love it. And sometimes all it takes is just simply doing a quick little sketch in your journal of what you can imagine your muse to look like. Maybe it's not a doll, maybe it's simply a sketch. This feels like it wants some rays going out in the other direction in these light colors. And I think when we're working with the energy of the muse, it's really important to be patient with ourselves, right? To take the time to explore, to ask, to try things on. This is a dress for my muse. It does not need to be the only dress, but it feels like it's today's outfit. It would be easy to sit here and spend the day and stitch up this whole piece of fabric. And so this one may come upstairs and get more added to it. And if you don't have a sewing machine or you don't like to sew, remember you can do whatever you want with the fabric and then glue the piece of fabric to a piece of cardstock or watercolor paper, whatever you have at home. With the traditional paper doll tabs, it's another way that you can incorporate fabric into your dolls. So it's feeling like it's got its own little flower magic happening here. And if you don't have a sewing machine, you could also hand stitch the dress together as well. And because I'm having so much fun with the hand stitching, I'm contemplating, well, maybe I should just stitch the back and the front of the dress together. Because it would also be pretty to do like an applique stitch down the edges, so I would get all the texture of the stitching. All right, so there we have a little bit of stitching added. And it's not about just sort of overcomplicating these practices and these processes. You know, I think sometimes mixed media art feels complicated because there are so many layers. Come back. All right. She definitely needs a little bit bigger armholes there. But she's coming together nicely. There's her beautiful little heart. We got her zoomed way in there. And I had some fun little beads sitting here, and it felt like she wanted perhaps a necklace of beads around her neck. I'm also looking, zoom back out again here. Don't be afraid to come in and glue or stitch things right onto the paper itself, right? So we can have a ton of fun with our dolls by adding all kinds of mixed media elements to them. And let's see. For some reason, these fun little long blue ones feel like maybe they want to get added to the waves. And I bet they're going to need a really long, skinny needle. Yeah, that's not going to go through there. So I could glue those on with a hot glue gun. And look how fun that is to just add some decoration to them. They're rolling everywhere. Definitely a hot glue effort, I think. I'm going to sit there for a second. But to come in and add adornment, right? Some of us have tattoos, some of us love jewelry or cuffs. So I think the more fun we have with our dolls, the more they speak to us, the more that they have to teach us. Let's see. I don't know if I have any of my... Oh, that one went through. Did it? Okay, that one went through. There we go. Maybe some of this nice pink thread. So just trying to show you a variety of fun ideas that we can do with our dolls to turn them more into really their own little mixed media masterpieces all on their own, so that they're both beautiful and meaningful, my favorite things. All right. My eyes are not what they used to be, for sure. You're going to get on there for me? Just make sure that's going to go through there. I want that thread to be doubled up. It's really fine thread, so I am doubling that thread so that it's going to hold those beads on and be nice and strong. And I particularly enjoy, I love slow stitching on fabric, but I also love stitching on paper. So don't be afraid to just stitch right on to the paper. So I'm going to come right up through there. And if your paper's really thick, then I recommend you can take an awl and poke holes in your paper first. And then it makes the stitching really, really easy. Yeah, she is definitely wanting some adornment. So look how cute that is to just come in and add some fun little pieces to her. And I don't know about you guys, but I seem to have an abundance of odds and ends and bits and pieces of my studio and that I enjoy buying, and I don't always know what to do with them. So this is a fun way to think about different options for using up all this stuff in your studio. Can anyone else relate to having a studio full of stuff and sometimes you wonder what on earth you're going to do with all this stuff? Surely I am not alone in my collecting habits. I love, these are paper beads. They're really beautiful. Somebody made handmade paper beads. And all of a sudden, we start to bring her to life. She's a muse. She needs to feel lively, right? Just knot that off. And like I said, if stitching is not your thing, grab some really good glue or a hot glue gun and glue all of this stuff on. It's a really fast way to create. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm loving adding the texture to the dolls. She's definitely, like I said, she's wanting some kind of a basket full of all her goodies, but it feels like she's very much coming to life. And maybe these little gold ones are going to be the center of these little flowers over here. I think I have enough string here to get at least one of these on. And if you can't, you don't want to mess up from the back, like poke a hole in the paper, right? And then come back through the other side and then you can make sure you get that needle up, because sometimes with paper you end up with a lot of holes. Excuse me. I cannot wait to have some time to finish her dress. I'm going to go back in right next. The thing about stitching on paper is that, you can very much go through holes in the page. Haha, thanks, Teddy. Good evening. I was going to say good morning, but good evening. And I am going to go through that one more time. Right back through that same hole. And my friend Leslie has opened me up to a whole new world of adding all kinds of texture to our art. And it's delightful, but it was also a whole new collecting. So my Valentine's gift to myself this weekend is going to be cleaning out my studio. Like, my muse definitely needs some cleanup. Let's see if my thread's long enough to get one more bead through here. So she's so happy, right? Like, all of a sudden it's like she feels really special. She's coming together. She's starting to take on a fun personality of her own. All right, I'm going to have to cut that one off and I hand tie it, I think. Too short. And I'm being lazy. Okay, so that was too short. That one did not stay on. The other one's on there nice and tight. All right, I will figure that one out later. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to try maybe to glue that one on. Try not to send beads flying. But all of a sudden, here she is coming together with some beautiful adornments. She only has half a dress at the moment, but she's going to get her whole dress. Bring her hair back to the front. And all of a sudden, she's like, feels completely different, right? And there's like, she's just, yeah, she is a colorful chick. She feels delightful. She feels confident. She feels very joyful and ready to play. And so as you go about expanding ideas for what you can do with your paper dolls, your task for the weekend is to look around your stash. What do you have on hand that would make your muse super, super happy? She's wanting like more sort of ribbons and streamers in her hair. Maybe some, it's like she needs some fun texture somehow in her hair. Her hair feels just a little bit boring at the moment. Loads of stuff. Loads of stuff. Well, that's kind of fun. So again, like, get creative. Look around the stash and ask yourself what would work, what's needed here, what would make her happy. I have these funny little gold tassels that came from a resale store. Like, just all the different things. Like, this would make a really fun belt for her dress, to have this fun gold tassel hanging. Oh, and maybe this is what is part of this. And the way that I like to think about it is, imagine if, you were going shopping for a new outfit, right? And you're trying, or you're even shopping in your closet, right? That you're trying on all kinds of things that you have in your studio. Get her whole body back in there and try them on, right? So go shopping for your dolls in your stash. Oh, she's got attitude now. Like there's something about adding the clothes and the beads and the decoration that she's starting to definitely have some attitude of her own. My fun little pin cushion that my mom bought me in Chinatown and is from my sewing kit I've had since I went away to college. So all these little fun sacred things that feel like they matter, right? I love, her head's kind of tilted there. She's kind of maybe questioning things, but she's definitely ready to go. So, personality, give her some personality. Not that she didn't have personality here, but she doesn't feel finished, right? So now she is on her way to feeling a little bit more finished. She's like, more gold shiny stuff. And we'll see when the tool gets here if she wants a little bit of fun tulle added on. There might be a layer of tulle that goes around her dress as well. So have fun looking around. Oh, look, this one says, well, you can't see that because it's tiny. It says, there she is. So that's really fun also. It has a fun crown on it. So that's super cute as well. So again, lots of things to try on. We're looking for those accessories, the clothes, the little extra something that really brings our muse to life, because the more lively that she is, then the more happy she's going to be and the more inspired that you are going to be. So many fun ways to work with our dolls here. I can't wait to finish this one up, and I can't wait to see what you create. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.